Phases of the Moon, a lesson plan used to compare the effects that integrating a technology component into a lesson has on student achievement and engagement. At the completion of this lesson, students will understand why the moon appears to have phases, they will be able to name the phases of the moon, and they will construct posters depicting the phases of the moon. This lesson incorporates several of the instructional strategies used to increase student achievement. The complete list of strategies can be found on page 8 of Using Technology with Classroom Instruction That Works by Howard Pittler and others. To highlight a few of the strategies I will be using, in both lessons I will be using a KWL chart, students will be working with a partner, and posters will be created. Both the technology and non-technology based lessons will meet several of the Michigan 4th grade science grade level content expectations. In the lesson, Phases of the Moon, students in both groups will learn about the moon and explore the phases using a light bulb and individual styrofoam balls on a stick. The groups will then be split up into Group A, the non-technology group, and Group B, the technology group, to perform the research and poster creation portions of the lesson. The lessons are similar in that they both begin with the same instruction and hands-on activity. In the non-technology based lessons, students will be doing research from informational books and a kept moon journal, whereas the technology-based lesson research will be done via a web quest. Posters in the non-technology lesson will be created using paper, crayons, and other craft supplies, whereas in the technology-based lesson, posters will be created using Kidspiration. Finally, the non-technology-based lesson reflection will be made in a science journal, whereas the technology-based lesson reflection will be made on Wikispaces. In order to assess prior knowledge and knowledge learned via the different lesson formats, I will be using the same paper assessment prior to and after the completion of the lesson. The assessment is based on the learning objectives I have established for the lesson. In my classroom, I use technology often. I have a smartboard that I use daily, as well as reserved time in the computer lab for other activities such as constructing PowerPoints, accessing websites, and word processing. Based on my past experiences with using technology in my classroom, I would expect that the Group B students would find the process to be much more engaging than Group A. I would also expect the results of the post-assessment to be slightly higher for Group B because they would be engaged and excited to be visiting the different websites in the WebQuest and would therefore be more attentive to the information they are obtaining. First, we will take a look at the Phases of the Moon Group A lesson that does not have a technology component. 1 month before the lesson will be taught, the students in Group A will be asked to keep a nightly moon journal where they will illustrate on a calendar what the moon looks like. This activity gives the student a personal and real connection to the phases of the moon. After the whole class instruction, the students in Group A will be put into pairs based on the results of the pre-assessment, pairing a student with a higher score with a lower scoring student. These pairs will then use informational books and their moon journals to research the phases of the moon and create various posters using conventional materials such as construction paper, crayons, and colored pencils. Students will be given a poster rubric to follow so that they understand how they will be assessed. After completion of the poster projects and the post-assessment, students will be asked to write a reflection in their science journals of what they learned about the phases of the moon. Students will be given 2 45-minute class periods to complete these tasks. Because I have done many research assignments using this method, I can expect the following pros and cons. Doing research in this way is wonderful, and that the pairs can work on the activity when they are finished with their classroom work, and they can use many different materials to give the posters texture and really personalize their work. In my experience in assigning this type of task, however, I have found that classroom management can be more difficult because the students are fighting over limited resources and materials, creating messes throughout the classroom, and the chatter will be at an all-time high. Also, when I have assigned the task of keeping a moon journal, I have found the following: that the students forget to do it, they can't see the moon on overcast nights, or they lose the journal altogether, defeating the purpose of the activity. Now let's take a look at the Phases of the Moon Group B lesson that has a technology component in it. In addition to the Michigan GLICS mentioned earlier, this lesson also meets several of the Michigan technology standards. As with the non-technology based lesson, after the whole class instruction, the students in Group B will be put into pairs based on the results of the pre-assessment, pairing a student with a higher score with a lower scoring student. Students will then be taken to the computer lab and given the instructions on how to navigate through the WebQuest and given a lesson refresher on using Kidspiration. The poster rubric will also be gone over at this time. After completion of the poster projects and the post-assessment, students will be asked to make an entry from home on my Wikispaces page, SBS 4th grade question of the week. After both groups have finished the assignment, we will complete the L portion of the KWL chart created at the beginning of the lesson using our journal reflection. Here's a snapshot of the web quest that the Group B students will be using to do their research. The quest includes several tasks that the students must perform that utilize different websites. The quest also supplies the students with a rubric that will be used to assess the posters that they will create. This is a web quest that I found online that meets the criteria for my learning objectives. This web quest was originally created by a Mr. Conant from Briscoe Middle School in Beverly, Massachusetts, and then modified by Mr. Hill, a science teacher from Brigham City, Utah. I think web quests are a wonderful way to focus students on a topic. It is a very safe way for them to navigate around the internet because you can look at all the sites prior to the students. The kids love web quests because they feel they have a mission to complete and all the instructions are right at their fingertips. Students will be given 2 45-minute class periods to complete the web quest and posters. Here is a snapshot of the Wikispaces page that I created for students to visit and reflect on their learning. I have not used this type of journaling in the past. I know the kids love sending me emails from home, and I think that they will really enjoy this type of journaling to share what they learned with the other students and me. It also gives parents an opportunity to see what their child is learning, not only in science but with technology as well. Students that do not have a computer or the internet at home will be given time at school to post their response. Here's a quick look at what a poster might look like using Kidspiration. The program does have a few moon graphics to use, however the kids will have to make some of the phases using the draw tool. Text can also be inserted. I have 2 student computers in my classroom, however the computers cannot access the internet. Also, it would take quite a lot of time for the 5 groups to navigate the web quest and complete the posters with only 2 computers available. Having given the instructions to the teacher beforehand, I will have Group B complete the assignment during computer class while I keep Group A behind to do work on their research. If Group B does not finish, I can always sign up for additional time in the computer lab. Last fall, my 4th grade students did a family history project. They were to research their family history through family interviews and then construct a PowerPoint to present to the class. The kids absolutely loved this project. They couldn't wait to get into the computer lab and work on their PowerPoints, and you could have heard a pin drop in the room while they were working. I was amazed at the presentations that they created. I would expect the same enthusiasm and engagement from Group B while doing this project. I am also sure that the noise volume will be less because they will each have their own computer to work on during the research phase. I am sure that there will be some talking and excitement during the Kidspiration portion, however there will not be the movement and the mess in the room as with Group A. As with any project, there will always be some cons. From time to time we do experience internet connectivity problems and we do have a limited amount of time in the computer lab, but I definitely think that the pros outweigh the cons in the technology-based lesson plan. I am very excited to teach these 2 lessons and compare the assessment results. It is important to remember, however, that teacher observation is also a great way to assess student learning. Although both lessons have their pros and cons, I am sure that Group B will be much more engaged in the research aspect of this lesson, and I am sure that, from a classroom management standpoint, Group B will have less difficulty staying on task. These are areas that can only be assessed through teacher observation. Some of the kids in Group B may be more tactile and may enjoy the lesson more if they were able to use the craft supplies. Allowing the students to make a choice as to which medium they will use to create the poster may be an option in the future. I'll wait and see how it goes. You never know. They might all be techies.